Macklin Celebrini last week was nominated for the Hobey Baker, youngest player in college hockey to obviously be nominated for that. He's also the youngest player in college hockey this season. Did score a goal in that Hockey East Championship game. Obviously didn't get the 4 goals that Will Smith got, but that's a different story. Look, maybe it's the Sharks who get him. Maybe it's somebody else who picks him. And I think you and I talked back in December. We thought, he's probably going to be the number 1 pick. Now I think we're assuming he's the number 1 pick. But my question,
he's number 1.
My question now is, does he automatically play or not play in the NHL next season? And maybe is that based on who picks him?
It may depend on who picks them, but there's been some recent instances where a player goes to the NHL right away and it doesn't necessarily work, like Slafkovsky in Montreal. I know Seattle's tried that with Wright. It's still kind of a mixed bag. It might be better for Celebrini, at least for that 1 year after the draft, to just play NCAA and get that 1 more year of development before signing an NHL contract. Every player's built differently. Like, one reason it's worked for Bedard is because he's built like a truck. Like Bedard was physically ready. He was physically ready in junior. Like, it was insane. So when people were like, "Oh, he might end up like Lafreniere," I was like, "No, he's way more NHL ready and a way higher skill level than Lafreniere." So even though Bedard's physically shorter than a lot of the guys, he's just so strong and he's so hard to move off the puck. So I mean, if Celebrini had that kind of upside, but I think it would probably be in his best interest to play another year in the NCAA.
Yeah, and I think last year's draft was a little bit of an aberration in producing a couple NHL-ready players. I don't know that doesn't normally happen every year, so wouldn't be a surprise if he doesn't. Sharks fans were kind of in this boat last year as it went down the stretch. They ultimately finished 4th worst record-wise in the NHL. Is it prudent for Sharks fans or any fan base in the league to actually be okay with finishing last, or to kind of hope that happens? Because in the end, you still only get, a 25% chance at picking first, in this case, getting Macklin Celebrini? It's not a lot.
No, I mean, I understand that thought. And I mean, the NHL has put in anti-tanking measures to make it harder for teams to be as bad as the Sharks are and really maximize their draft potential. But I mean, that's still a 1 in 4 chance of getting a guy that is going to be a franchise player. We had Rachel Dory, an NHL draft expert for ESPN, on our podcast that dropped this week, and she said that, he is going to be a Nathan MacKinnon-esque generational scorer. Maybe not generational player like McDavid or Bedard, but a guy like McKinnon, like Matthews, that is going to put up incredible numbers in this league. And you have to maximize your potential of landing that player. And you do it within the confines of the rules the NHL has created to try to discourage tanking. And you kind of go from there. I'm a pro tank guy. Like, I don't care. Like, if you want to tear down your team and tear down your season in service of trying to draft a player that is going to make you good for the next dozen years, by all means do it.
Absolutely.
I feel like all of this hand wringing about, you shouldn't have people root for their team to lose. Well, they're going to lose anyway. Who cares?
As we look at winning the lottery or not, and whoever the Sharks get in a draft pick or not, does it change how long this is going to take? Could Celebrini truly accelerate the process? And with or without Celebrini, what are you maybe aiming at in terms of when the Sharks could be back to annual playoff contention? Like, how many more years in your mind?
I don't think there's another player that's the accelerant that Celebrini is. I think Celebrini could have the same kind of impact in year 1 that Bedard had for Chicago, but I think that the Sharks have more functional warm bodies on their roster and in their system than do the Blackhawks. So the turnaround could be a little bit quicker than maybe it is for a team like Chicago that really tore the thing down to the rivets. But what is it? What are we thinking? Like 3 years maybe for a turnaround? Get these kids.
It's already been 5 with
NHL.
5 with no playoffs. You know what I mean? So you add another 3, and you're thinking, wow, that's going to be a while.
It's a long road ahead.
Yeah.
But I mean, the team made some contractual decisions based on trying to remain viable with the veterans that they had on the roster, and it didn't work. And it takes time to change over the roster, to figure out what the next phase is going to be. It gets easier when you have a guy like Celebrini at the top of the pyramid. But look, man, we've talked before. Like, I lived in the Bay Area for a couple of years. I lived in Campbell. Shout out Campbell. Lovely downtown. And I got to see the tail end of the mania surrounding this team, and it was clearly, like post Thornton, post Marlowe, post Cup final appearance, and it's a bummer for me to not see a viable San Jose Sharks franchise right now, to not see the excitement, to not see the tank filled, to not have that team be relevant. Because it's important for the league, to be honest with you, for that franchise to be relevant. I think they have a very strong, passionate following that can move the needle in the Western Conference in ways that a lot of teams don't. I think their viability within the context of the Battle of California is important. I mean, look at the Ducks and the Sharks and how that whole thing is atrophied because you only have one team that's good right now.
Right.
Like, it's important for the Sharks to be good, and it's important for that franchise to get good as quickly as possible to re-energize the fans. And hopefully it happens. So hopefully there's some lottery luck for that team, because I think if they get Celebrini, it'll happen sooner than later.